Good evening, everyone. I am AFSCME Council 3 President Patrick Moran. Welcome to our webinar tonight, Adapting and Thriving Remotely, a conversation on the impact of the pandemic on public services in Maryland. Before we get started, I want to welcome our viewers. This event is being broadcast live on our Facebook page, AFSCME Maryland, that is AFSCME Maryland, and that will be available for viewing afterwards. Please make sure you like and follow our page for updates on events like this. If you're listening live right now, please comment in the chat with a thumbs up if you can hear and see us. We're going to introduce our guests in a moment, but please let's look first at a survey we ran amongst state employees. In September, AFSCME conducted a survey of public employees in our bargaining unit about teleworking during the pandemic. Over 1,000 public employees answered questions about teleworking and how they have adjusted to delivering the vital services many of our residents depend on. AFSCME Council 3 conducted a survey of Maryland public employees about their experiences with telework since the pandemic began. Over 1,000 responded. Responses from state employees, judiciary employees, and higher education employees. As you can see, of the 1,000 respondents, 80% of them had no previous experience with teleworking. Nearly 1 in 3 said they were currently receiving pressure to stop teleworking, even though they can continue doing their work remotely, and most were unclear why. 40% said that teleworking has made balancing family and work easier for them, while 16% say it was nearly impossible to balance both. Nearly 50% said they lacked the necessary hardware and software to do their jobs effectively from home, while 42% felt uncomfortable about using their personal phones for state business. AFSCME Council 3 members are on the front lines, helping the residents of Maryland recover from the pandemic and contain the spread in hotspots. When the pandemic began, hundreds of public services moved online, including applying for unemployment benefits, check-ins with parole and probation agents as required by law, taxpayer services and information about tax returns, local health departments having assisted with contact tracing and other pandemic-related communications, and many more services are used daily by your neighbors and our neighbors. Let's hear from our guests. Please tell where you work and what you do. Tell us where you work and what you do, sorry. Cherrish, let's start with you.
Thank you, Patrick. Hello, everyone. My name is Cherrish Vick, and I am a case manager at Prince George's County Department of Social Services. I am the treasurer of AFSCME Local 112, which is the Maryland Social Services Employees Union, and I am the secretary treasurer of Council 3.
Thank you, Cherrish. Jessika?
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jessika Burroughs. I am a local member. I am a member of Local 631. I am a volunteer activities coordinator at John L. Gildner Regional Institute for Child and Adolescents, and that acronym is JLG RICA Rockville, and that is in Rockville, Montgomery County.
Thank you, Jessika. Cheryl?
Hey everybody, thank you, Patrick, for having me. My name is Cheryl Bost, and I'm a 4th and 5th grade teacher from Baltimore County, but I'm serving as the president for the Maryland State Education Association, representing 75,000 of your brother and sister union workers in our schools across the state. And
also a former Baltimore County Teacher of the Year.
That is true. I love my 4th graders.
There you go. Courtney?
Hi, my name is Courtney Hatcher. I am a National Certified School Psychologist and Board Certified Behavior Analyst. I currently work in Frederick County Public Schools. I'm the lead trainer of A Wright Education Associates, and I am the past president of the Maryland School Psychologists Association.
Thank you. And Chris?
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Meyer. I am a research analyst at the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. We are a research and policy organization that works to build a healthy Maryland economy. We work in a wide range of areas, taxes, budget, worker protections, and we work extensively with AFSCME and other unions in the state.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to your answers to a number of the questions we have. Cherrish and Jessika, I'm going to start with you. Looking at the data that you just saw us go through here, what are some of your reflections or your impressions of that data? We know many of the state's most vulnerable residents will depend on public services provided by AFSCME members to recover from the pandemic, but how can we improve remote access and availability to folks that are teleworking? Cherrish, let's start with you.
Thank you, Patrick. As many of you may know, I live in Southern Maryland. So internet access is not the same as it is in the metro regions of the state. So prior to the pandemic, I was not home often enough to use the internet so much. Now I am using my own home internet service, which slows down after being on a Zoom training from 9 to 4 every day. And I'm still attempting to communicate with my clients via the internet, which most of them do not have the internet or they do not have smartphones. So that's become a real challenge. I think that the internet is now considered a public utility, and we need to find ways to get the internet access to everyone.
Thank you. How about you, Jessika?
Well, thank you for asking. Like Cherrish, I also have internet issues. One of the biggest things that stood out with me from the survey was that with approximately 80% of first-time teleworkers, that means that there's also a lot of supervisors that are unaware of how to properly supervise first-time teleworkers. And between the obstacles of supervision and the day-to-day expectations of the staff, not to mention the use of our own personal technology equipment. I was not provided anything, so we use our own technology, our own laptops, our own phones. All of these things tend to be an obstacle in the day-to-day. And I think that that's something that was reflected in the survey, not just personally, but for the group as a larger demographic. It seems to be an ongoing issue with us having to provide our own supplies and technology.
Great, thank you. And the next question I have for you both is, how does the cost of high quality internet statewide impact making remote work a more realistic option for working people like our members? Cherrish?
I'll start. Thank you, Patrick. It's challenging. Many of our members are balancing paying the rent on time, paying their mortgage. The price of groceries has increased during this time. Many people have to find childcare services, which the price of that has gone up. Since I've been home, I've noticed that my utility usage has increased because I'm on the computer all day. I was fortunate enough to receive an iPad and an iPhone and a laptop from my agency, but I have to use all three of them. So I am using my electricity more than I was before. So that's created an increase in my personal budget.
And Jessika, how's that affecting you?
Just like as Cherrish said, there have been many increases in expenses such as groceries, utilities, supplies for remote work, and learning. Let's not forget about that. On top of us doing our job, we're also educating our children. Costs have if not doubled, maybe tripled. We are already living check to check. Some state members, our checks have not increased. Thankfully enough, we were blessed to have some savings, but I know everybody's struggling. This is times that we're all struggling. No one's different from the other. Right now, like I said, my employer didn't provide anything, so I'm using my own supplies. I actually had to go out and purchase actual technology to use. I had purchased Microsoft Office because it wasn't provided, and that was something I needed to do for my job. So when you're buying your own supplies and you're receiving no reimbursement for any of these expenses, it's hard, especially like I said, with our salaries not increasing, not getting raises or bonuses or steps, we're already struggling to begin with.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Jessika. Thank both of you for your insight. This, your responses are reflecting exactly what people have said in the survey. And it's disheartening to know that people are working so hard and putting so much into it, and the state isn't there to get them the resources they need. But I'm going to bring on Cheryl next, Cheryl Bost from MSEA. Cheryl, how are your members preparing for remote learning?
So I want to say thank you to all of your members who are keeping essential services going and making our state continue to run. We have many employees within our ranks, our custodians, our food service workers who've continued to work throughout this COVID crisis, and all of you are heroes for what we're doing. Our members are facing many of the same things that yours just said. Educators, no matter what job you have, you want to be back in school, on buses, in the front office, and secretaries, everybody wants to be in school, but we can't be there if it's not a healthy and safe environment. And as you know, and you're talking about the lack of resources, computers, technology, internet, educators are still facing those things too. We have thousands of kids who still don't have access. So teachers are doing both virtual and putting some packets together and trying to remediate with students. There's been a high demand for in-person learning, as we know, because I think people think we're just going to flip a switch and all be able to go back into our classrooms. But we're not getting the funding, just as you're not as state employees. The federal stimulus package, the HEROES Act, has stalled, so we're not seeing any more stimulus money. Governor Hogan has not provided any additional money into education. In fact, he's proposing additional cuts. When he said he had $10 million, every piece that he has offered has been federal CARES Act money. Mm-hmm. So it might look good, but it's not good. And the superintendents across this country have estimated it costs $486 per student to get ramped up for PPE, plexiglass on front secretaries' desks, for hand sanitizer, ventilation, all of that. And even if you took the 20 million, the two different $10 million and spread that out evenly, that would only be $22 per student to do that. And unfortunately, the governor has given more of that money to private schools and colleges than he has public schools here in the state of Maryland. So like many of your state employees, as you said, are starting to feel exhausted with this and demoralized. Our educators are too. All of us were seen as heroes in the spring, and now for some reason being demonized now in the fall and being looked at as the cause of why we can't get back to normal, when the true cause is because our federal government hasn't ended this pandemic and mitigated it like other countries, and we're not getting the funding that we need. And the other thing I would add is workload, just like many of you. Mm-hmm. If educators have to do virtual learning and in-person learning, that's really the job of two people. And they're being asked more and more to do that. So as school systems go in faster in our Eastern Shore state counties, they're telling us that teachers are just leaving because they can't teach students on the computer and deal with their tech issues and teach in the classroom with all the PPE and everything. As you know, when you do school supply lists, you're asked to give tissues and hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes. That shouldn't be the case. And we don't trust the districts and the systems to maintain that social distancing and all those protections. They're not growing on trees. Masks aren't growing on trees, so they have to come up with them somehow.
Yes, we know all too well, unfortunately. Our members are well aware of that. Cheryl, how can parents collaborate with teachers at this time?
And that's great because we need everybody to collaborate. The first thing I would say for everyone is give yourselves and others grace. We know that you're working a full-time job trying to do it at home and trying to teach your students or keep them engaged, and that's very difficult. And our teachers are trying that as well with their own kids at home. So first of all, give yourself grace. We are in the middle of a pandemic. But some advice, first of all, is to establish routines and schedules for your students. I'm a 4th and 5th grade teacher. Mm-hmm. Our students thrive on having a routine and having a schedule. Get out of bed, make them get out of bed, make them brush their teeth, put on clothes, not pajamas, and have an established routine. That'll help you down the road also, that they're in that routine and they know when they're starting, when they're ending. include in there some physical activity. We're spending too much time sitting in front of our computers.
Mhm.
Find a space, even if it's a small space. Even some of our teachers have turned closets into work areas. Find a space that they can have their own and have some downtime. I have to tell you, we don't spend the entire day instructing in school. Some of it's self-reflection, some of it's independent reading, some of it's just getting out and having recess. So have recess every day.
Mhm.
And also put your kids in charge of their own learning. We do as teachers. And I know it's harder for parents, but put them in charge of their learning. Just ask them check-in questions. How are your lessons today? Is there anything I can help you with? And always keep in touch with the teacher and our paraeducators. They have resources through counselors, school psychologists if your students are feeling down or confused about what they're learning. And find some fun things to do. Maybe it's Taco Tuesday as a family night or Movie Monday so that you can separate school and work and family and fun time. So that collaboration and helping to set up those routines. We're co-teachers now, all of us, and we have to help each other.
Thank you so much. You just did an action in Hartford County around reopening. What were the challenges there?
So I know this is going to be surprising to you, but the decision makers are not listening to our educators. They're not listening to the people that are actually going to deliver education and be in the buildings. And again, not that that's foreign to any of the state employees. And so we were asking to sit at the table to come up with a memorandum of understanding on health and safety. What will it look like when we go in to the buildings? And the district was refusing to sit down and have those conversations. And they were refusing to enforce some of the health and safety precautions that are coming out of the Maryland Health Department. I find it odd that they can't enforce wearing masks in our buildings. But if you're a woman and your skirt's too short, they will sure as heck send you home. Or you have a shirt that they don't like, they will send you home. We can enforce mask wearing. So it was to get the public support to say educators and parents really have to be at the table. And Patrick, on our website, marylandeducators.org, is a health and safety checklist that we just released.
Right.
And we're asking every school to develop a core group of parents, teachers, administrators, everybody, and make sure the school's following those health and safety precautions before they go back in. So it's a way for your members as parents to get involved.
Well, thank you. That's great. One last thing is, what are some things we can help MSEA with and its members with in the upcoming months?
Well, a big push for us will be the Blueprint for Maryland's Future.
Yep.
That was key legislation we've been working on for 3 years. Soon after the pandemic, it was passed by the legislature in a bipartisan manner. And then in the middle of everything, Governor Hogan vetoed it. And not only did he veto that, he vetoed the Built to Learn Act, which would rehab our buildings. We have too many buildings, especially in Baltimore City, that really should not be inhabited by anybody, let alone children.
Mm-hmm.
And so he vetoed the blueprint, he vetoed the Built to Learn. So if we can work together to get our legislators to override that veto, that will be crucially important. And I can just say in your individual schools and areas, if you could just show your teachers and your support professionals, everybody a little love. They are getting beat up by what has now become a partisan topic, a pandemic.
Well, thank you. And we, as you know, we definitely supported and will continue to support the Blueprint for Maryland, Cheryl. We all want to say thank you to everyone at MSEA for their tireless efforts to make all of the classrooms in Maryland safe and healthy. We can't say that enough. We really appreciate that. And we will enthusiastically stand with your members to ensure Maryland has the best learning environments for our children. And thank you again, Cheryl. We know you have to go, so we really appreciate your time and your energy, and all the best to everyone at MSEA.
Thank you, and we appreciate the partnership and the collaboration. We'll keep up the fight together, everybody.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. Now we have Courtney Hatcher, a school psychologist and lead trainer at A-Right Educational Consultants. Courtney, what tips or suggestions for preserving mental health would you have for workers struggling to telework and balance their childcare responsibilities at this moment?
Thank you. My first suggestion would be to forget the word balance. Balance is not realistic. And so what I tell all of my clients and people I work with, and a lot of us agree, is it's a myth. Balance is not a myth. And like Cheryl said earlier, we're in a pandemic. So you really want to give yourself grace and patience with this. And really what I to focus on are boundaries. So instead of worrying about balance, it's about boundaries. So life right now is going to be about a seesaw. You're not going to have 100 every day. Some days the goal is just to get yourself out of bed and to get your kids out of bed. I was joking with colleagues earlier today. I had 4 meetings yesterday, and I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And after my second meeting, I came into my bedroom, and again, so I work a full day and then I volunteer. So I had my regular work day, and then I had a 9 o'clock meeting. I had a 6:30 meeting. I had our 7:30 meeting, and then I had 8:30 p.m. meeting. And please don't judge that my children were still not in bed by 8:30, because it was one of those days. And when I came into my bedroom at 8:30, my mattress was on the floor, and I have no clue where the sheets were. But that day was a win because everybody was still alive and healthy, right? So there's going to be days where I can do laundry and get everything good to go, and everyone's going to have meals. There's other days where we're going to have peanut butter and jelly twice, and that's okay. So it's really about balance. And there's going to be wonderful days where you're going to knock parenting out of the park, and you're going to be, like Mary Poppins. And there's going to be other days where your laundry is going to be piled high, and the goal is just to get through it, and give yourself grace with that. So it really comes down to boundaries. The one thing I will say about working from home, and my husband telecommutes, and when we first started this cycle of him doing that, switching that kind of job, as someone that loves reading articles about research, I asked, well, what is the biggest thing you can tell us about working from home? And the one thing everybody kept saying is you have to have boundaries. When you're in your house, you forget that you can turn things off. And so sometimes, and I don't know your members how their jobs are, but I know for my husband, it bleeds in. The phone goes off, his manager calls. It'll be a quick second because my husband does IT. So if a server goes down, he has to answer it. That 5 minutes, next thing you know, you're 2 hours into working on a task. And so really with him, it's about us figuring out what does your workday look like, and then what is your wiggle room. And when you're at your desk, that's your desk. And when you're on the couch, you're now with our family. So finding zones, just like with your children, like Cheryl was saying, having that same workspace for your kids to be at the desk, for you having your own workspace. And when you're there, you're mentally there. So it should be a desk somewhere. It should not be your bed, hopefully not your kitchen table or someplace enjoyable. And then when you're done with that work for that day, get up, like Cheryl was saying, move your body, and then go somewhere else and be done. As much as you can try, please don't have your work email attached to your personal phone. Those are my kids. Turn it off. You need mental break from this stuff. It's nonstop. Just like Facebook is tragic for a lot of our seniors and our teenagers because it's nonstop with the bullying. Your work can be overwhelming because you're always getting dinged about emails, right? So if you can put a timer on your phone, like my phone turns itself off at a certain time and it doesn't ring unless you know to call me twice, right? Things like that will help you to separate your home from your work. The other thing I would definitely say is build in reinforcers. The way your brain works is through dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel good. I did something great. One way you can trick your brain into releasing some of that dopamine is by accomplishing things. So another way to organize yourself is to make a simple list in the morning of things you want to get done that day. Now, if you're like me and you like to get a lot of things done, maybe pick some simple things. If you are like my husband that likes to get like big things done, maybe rank order them. And then as you go through the day, physically cross them off. Or some people have sticky notes and they throw them away. The act of crossing them off or throwing them away lets your brain know I've accomplished something. And that actually gives you a little dopamine burst, which actually releases those feel-good chemicals and actually helps you to feel better. Those are some ways you can trick your body into feeling good. Now, if you're finding yourself in a situation where you are kind of feeling down and out consistently more than usual, and you're struggling to just get out of bed, things that used to make you happy aren't happy anymore, recognize that, give yourself grace with that, and then also reach out, right? So there's no shame in mental health. There's no shame in calling somebody. A lot of companies Blue Cross Blue Shield, TRICARE, whatever you're using, have telesupport if you can't get to the doctor. I recommend to everybody, I wish America was like some other countries where you have mental health checkup once a year, like you do for your physicals. If you need to talk to somebody, please talk to somebody. There's no harm in talking to somebody. Sometimes having a third party who doesn't know you just to kind of air stuff out with helps, right? Some of us know that friend we talk to and it's a good sounding board, and the act of just getting it out there will help. Some people can do things like journaling to get it out. Some people like to do running to get it out. I'm not a running type of person. I'm going to be inappropriate and show you my wall. So like, I like to do these kinds of things. As you can see, that's my messy bed. See, it's not a good day for Courtney. It's okay. Right. So I have like all these house plants. So what I do for my mental health is I do gardening because I don't do outside very well. But if you can walk, garden, sew, cook, whatever you want to do, find fun things in your life that you can do, but be mindful that you only have 24 hours in a day. Self-care, I jokingly say, is a privilege. I'm a mom of 2 young kids and I work full time. I don't always have the privilege to do it, but we can all find 5 minutes to do something, right? And so find 5 minutes each day to do something for yourself to get some of that pressure off.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. We really appreciate your insight and your suggestions for our folks. Finally, we have Christopher Meyers, a research analyst for the Maryland Center on Economic Policy, who's going to walk us through the state's current budget situation. Chris?
Thank you, Patrick. And I've got some slides here, which I am not running. Excellent. Thank you, Katie. So my name is Chris Meyer. I'm a research analyst at the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit research and policy organization. We partner extensively with AFSCME Council 3 and other unions in Maryland. We believe every Marylander should be able to achieve their full potential in a healthy economy that offers a widely shared rising standard of living. That's a bit of a mouthful. Our vision for Maryland is based on an economy that works for everyone, not just for those at the top, and an equitable approach to policy that aims to break down barriers that today hold back Marylanders of color, women, and Marylanders with disabilities. And state and local workers like you play a vital role in making that vision a reality, especially in times of crisis like the present. Maryland residents rely on essential services like good public schools, modern transportation networks, and competent government administration. And finally, oh, I am so sorry. I did not tell you to switch slides. Can you go forward 2 slides, please? Thank you. I apologize for that. Finally, we believe you can't build a strong economy out of bad jobs. Our shared investments in public services have to create good jobs that pay enough to support a family. When you're building a house, you can't skimp on the foundation. Next slide, please. Thanks. So we're going to take a whirlwind tour of the state's current fiscal situation. The 10-word version is, things are not as bad as we feared so far. So this graph shows estimated Maryland general fund revenue as estimated before the pandemic, earlier this year, and today. So before the pandemic, revenues were expected to grow on average 3.6% a year between fiscal 2019 and 2022. The current official estimate has that down by about a quarter. So it's 3/4 as fast growth now as we previously expected. This estimate builds in a couple of optimistic assumptions though. So state analysts have put together a less rosy alternative scenario. And in that case, annual revenue growth would actually be 3/4 slower than pre-pandemic expectations. So to state the obvious, this will make it harder to meet Maryland communities' growing needs. However, today's outlook is much better than the damage state analysts were expecting earlier this year. That green line at the bottom is what was expected as of May, in which you would actually have $600 million lower revenue in 2022 than we did in 2019. Next slide, please. Thanks. So this graph gives a different perspective on the same information. We're now looking at how much we lose in different scenarios compared to what we were expecting before the pandemic. The takeaway is essentially the same. We're facing significant revenue challenges, but those challenges are a fraction as severe as we initially feared. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just as important as revenues are reserves, how much money the state has in the bank. So this graph shows first the amount the general fund is expected to have in it by the end of the year. So that would be June of next year. How much the state's rainy day fund is expected to have, and the sum of two, the combined total. So before the pandemic, we were expecting the June 2021 combined total to be about $1.4 billion, which is a good chunk of money to have stashed away. Under the May estimate, the doomsday scenario, we were expecting to be $2 billion in the red, even after draining the rainy day fund altogether. The current scenario, that expected loss has essentially disappeared. We're looking at the same total fund balance this coming June now as we were before the pandemic. In the less rosy scenario, our reserves would likely go down by about half. So what this means is in the short term, we can use the rainy day fund to prevent damaging budget cuts. And that's exactly what the rainy day fund is there for, to protect essential services during an emergency. The catch is that this isn't a one-year crisis. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we can and should use reserves in the short term, but in the long term, we are facing a choice. We can cut essential services that are already overstretched, kill jobs in the process. We can cancel planned investments like the blueprint, or we can improve our tax code and lay the foundation for a strong future in Maryland. Next slide, please. Thanks. So as you may have guessed, I think only one of those choices is really a way forward. The fact is we can't cut our way to a healthy economy. In fact, cutting back our budget will only weaken the economy. We've already lost thousands of state and local jobs just this year in Maryland. And when working families lose income, that means they spend less at local businesses and it damages the entire community. Next slide, please. Thank you. So fortunately, cuts are not the state's only option. Maryland's tax code currently is riddled with loopholes that let large corporations get away with not paying their fair share. And the wealthiest individuals in Maryland actually pay a smaller share of their income in state and local taxes than the rest of us do. And so there is a lot that we can do to fix this. And during Q&A, we can go into detail on any of these proposals if there's interest. But these proposals would all make our economy fairer and raise billions to invest in Maryland communities. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the question is, can we afford to raise taxes on large corporations and wealthy individuals? The answer is yes. Less than 3 years ago, the Trump administration pushed through a massive tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthy few. It's entirely reasonable to ask them to give some of that back for the common good. Next slide, please. Well, what about business taxes? This graph here that you're looking at is based on data from the global accounting firm Ernst & Young, which they compiled in a report for a nationwide pro-business group. What they found is that Maryland has lower overall business taxes than most other states. And when you consider the benefits businesses get from our shared investments in things like transportation, tomorrow's workforce, businesses get a better bang for the buck in Maryland than in any other state. Next slide, please. So Maryland is facing some important choices. We believe the right move for our economy and for Maryland communities is to protect essential services, invest our shared resources in good jobs, and raise the revenue we need to build a strong future. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Chris. It looks like some big decisions are going to be made in the legislative session as Governor Hogan has punted some of the tough decisions that he's supposed to make. But what are some of those decisions, and what is the budget fight going to look like in the legislative session, particularly around revenue enhancements?
So I try very hard these days not to predict the future in terms of political outcomes. The big question is how revenue estimates come out in December. State analysts are expecting to have a better idea of the picture going forward in December. So we might see something more along the lines of the official September estimate, which would be very good news, or something more along the lines of the alternative estimate. And so that obviously will determine how much the governor tries to cut. So there are one kind of longer term piece of good news, which we shouldn't get into too much because it is longer term, is the constitutional amendment on the ballot this year that would finally rebalance our budget process to look more like every other state's and give the legislature essentially any say. In the short term, all of the bills that I mentioned or that were on the slide were introduced in 2020. Many of those are bills that had been introduced for years and years and not gone anywhere. A major bill to close corporate tax loopholes actually got out of the House this year, which is a big deal. We think there's a decent chance it would have passed the Senate too if the session had not been cut short. So we think that there is definitely some promise that we can, get some major important reforms through. And we've also seen things like the tobacco tax would be law today if Governor Hogan had allowed it to become law. So overriding that is also a quick solution. Altogether, that corporate tax loopholes bill and tobacco taxes would probably be roughly $300 to $400 million a year. So not a silver bullet, but that would, mean significant progress. And on other solutions, I don't know, but there are people working very hard on it.
Well, thank you, Chris. We appreciate the information and all the work that you and the folks at the Maryland Center on Economic Policy do for everyone here in Maryland. As you are all aware, we have an election in November, and we are encouraging everyone to participate. I want to ask our Council 3 Secretary Treasurer, Cherrish Vick, to walk us through our Get Out the Vote efforts here in Maryland. Cherrish?
Thank you, Patrick. As you know, as everyone knows, this election is the most important election of our lives, of life or death, as it has been for over 200,000 Americans, including some of our fellow state employees. So it's very important. In Maryland, the deadline to request your mail-in ballot is October 20th. You can go online to the Maryland State Board of Elections to request that if you have not done so already. As you know, we do have early in-person voting in Maryland that will run from October 26th to November 2nd. Please do not be discouraged if there are long lines. I stood in a long line in 2008. I did it again in 2012. You can do it. Pack some snacks. Please be patient. It's very important. If you are unable to vote early, vote on election day. As state employees, it's a holiday for us. We don't have to work. Please vote. It's extremely important. If you have any questions about whether or not you're registered, go to the Maryland State Board of Elections to confirm that you are registered and that they have your correct home address. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for mentioning the fact that we have lost some members due to the virus. We just lost a third member a couple of days ago who was an employee of the MVA, and our hearts and thoughts go out to him and his family. As many of you know, that we fought very hard when this pandemic came out of nowhere, unfortunately, just to make sure that our members had the proper PPE and resources to do their jobs in a safe and healthy manner. And that was in the face of a lot of pushback from agencies. MDH, Maryland Department of Health, was one of the most stubborn and really, I would argue, dangerous agencies that we had to contend with. They did not allow our members to wear masks in the state hospitals for weeks and weeks after the virus had been announced and after the state said they were closing down. It was just really illogical, it was dangerous, and it was reckless. But the reason why I bring that up, because many of you know AFSCME will begin to bargain our state contract this Friday with the state. We will bargain through the economic realities, as Chris just talked about, and not the Hogan scare tactics. As many of you know, Governor Hogan attempted to cut our pay by 5%, increase our health insurance by several percentage points, and to cut overtime and the way they calculate overtime for those folks that are affected by that. He's going to attempt to cut salaries, increase the cost of health insurance, and take away overtime provisions and other things. Again, he's going to attempt to do that. And we are going to push back, and we're going to push back hard. In the face of the coronavirus pandemic, our members ran towards the fire to help contain it and keep Maryland safe and healthy. We just heard the economic outlook is not as drastic as the administration would have you believe. And we're going to continue to tell that story, and we're going to continue to fight and push for safe and healthy workplaces and compensation that respects our members who ran into the danger during the onset of the virus and during the current situation in the virus, and continue to work hard through very safe, unsafe, and hazardous conditions. We, like we do every time, are going to fight for our rights, and we're going to fight for our benefits and the respect we have earned and deserve. It is absolutely crazy that we have an administration that wants to punish employees that have done everything to help the people of Maryland, and to get through a crisis and come through the other side. We do not know what the future holds, but we will continue to push to make sure that our members are respected and get the resources that they need and deserve to keep a healthy and safe work environment and a healthy and safe community. We want to thank our guests and the members of the telework committee that helped with the survey and putting this forum together. We can't thank you enough. It has been incredibly successful. Please stay tuned for more updates like this, and make sure you share this program on your Facebook page so we can continue to spread this information out to everyone we can. It's incredibly important that we get it out to more folks, that they see this and they see the great speakers and the members that had the questions and good and important answers. You can like and follow our AFSCME Maryland Facebook page to stay tuned for more updates. We will also be releasing a booklet with information on the survey results, adapting to remote work, and the budget outlook ahead. So please view the booklet on our website at AFSCMEMD.org. That's AFSCMEMD.org, and share this presentation with your coworkers, please. Please stay healthy and safe, and have a great night, and have a great rest of the week, everyone. Thank you.